So Omagana Timirandasha Gananchana Shalakaya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigarave Namaha. So welcome to the ISKCON Disciple Course, Part 2, and hopefully we finished today. And so, as we mentioned last week, the purpose of the ISKCON Disciple Course is to prepare devotees for taking initiation. Not only prepare them for taking initiation, but to help everyone understand Srila Prabhupada's exemplary, prominent position, understand the relationship of the present gurus to Srila Prabhupada, understand their relationship with the present gurus, understand how to worship Prabhupada, understand how to worship the present gurus, understand what is a bogus guru, and what are bogus philosophies. Anyway, it's a lot of stuff. And so we're going to continue today with the next portion, which is called, the regulated principles anyway. Following the regulated principles. Initiation vows. Because when one takes initiation, one takes certain vows. And these vows, the purpose of the vows is to help one, first of all, be situated in the mode of goodness. Everyone's heard of the mode of goodness before? What are the other modes? Does anyone know? Nobody knows. Passion and ignorance. So in goodness, one's mind is clear. In passion, you're just thinking of more and more, getting more and more, and ignorant, you're just thinking of go to sleep. So it's better not to sleep, and it's better not to think of money while you're engaged in spiritual life. So better to engage in the mode of goodness so you have a clear mind and you can meditate. Okay? So, the page in the book, let's say you were starting on 38. So, that's one reason. Another reason is so that one can become sinless, because sins impede one. So, sins can create things called anarthas. Anartha means things you don't want, like lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, fear. So that's another reason why we have the regulated principles. And ultimately, the reason we have the regulated principles is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because Krishna is not pleased by one breaking their initiation vows, because, let's say, if one takes intoxication, which one of the initiation vows is not to take intoxication, then it separates one from Krishna. Krishna is not pleased with intoxication. Krishna is not pleased with illicit sex. Krishna is only pleased with things that can be offered to him. So like Krishna says in the Gita, Yad karochi yad ashnashi yad jahoshi dadasyat. Everything you should do, you should be offered to me. So certain things can't be offered to Krishna. You can't offer marijuana to Krishna. One time I went around a temple to Lord Shiva, and they were offering marijuana to hashish to Lord Shiva, and they offered it to me. And I said, no, it's Ekadashi. Can't take it on Ekadashi. So, because I didn't want to offend them. So, there's certain things you just can't offer to Krishna. So a devotee's life, everything a devotee does is offered to Krishna. Even if they're going to work, they're offering it to Krishna because they're offering the results to Krishna. Even if they're taking care of their home is actually a place for Krishna. So all these things can be offered to Krishna, but things that can't be offered to Krishna, a devotee is not interested in. Okay? So that's why we have the initiation vows, and why breaking the vows is not productive to Krishna consciousness. So let's go over this. So first of all, we have the regulated principles. Now, for most of you from India, that's not a problem. But for people, actually even now in India, it's a problem. I'm sorry about that one. Because I know Ditchanath has tried to stop, the bars in UP. And there's been a lot of pushback from the public about that, isn't it? He doesn't want any bars within how many meters of a highway or something like that? Something like that, 100 meters of the highway. And everyone's upset. Oh no, how are we going to have fun? So many businesses are closed down. So, even in India, people are addicted to intoxication. Marijuana grows everywhere. on the sides of the road there. I'm not going to tell you where, but everywhere. So, anyway. And actually, Prabhupada said that marijuana that people take in the Western world, originally they learned it from India. So there's many things have been imported. Many good things have been imported from India, such as the Pythagorean theory, which came from India, and many mathematical things. But some things not so good, like marijuana, came from India. So sometimes devotees think that any product that comes from India must be good. Well, some things are good, some things are not good. Anyway, so we have our regulative principles. And let's see, that's no meat eating. So there's a good reason for not eating meat, and we're going to go over all four of them. Daya, that means mercy. Because a devotee naturally understands that within each and every living entity there's a soul. And that soul experiences things just like you and I experience things. And even, let's say, a fish, which people in India call water vegetables, or Gangapal, the fruit of the Ganges, the fish has a developed nervous pain system just like you and I, even though it can't talk. At least I have never talked to a fish. But so it can experience pain. So why should we create a painful situation for any other living entity? And vegetables don't have developed nervous systems. However, we're vegetarians because we offer things to Krishna, not simply because of this principle of daya, although it's a very important principle. Because we're not interested in vegetarian eating without Krishna. So the next vow is no intoxication, and that's austerity. And generally, Prabhupada talked about coffee, tea, cigarettes, and devotees in the beginning days of the movement didn't really understand that principle too well. I remember there's a story about one devotee, Shama Sundar. He was carving Lord Jagannath, and then Prabhupada came in to see what he was doing, and he had a pack of cigarettes resting on Lord Jagannath. So, and Prabhupada said, smoke one less a day and give it up. So Prabhupada was very compassionate in that way. But anything that really alters the consciousness, or as Prabhupada would put it, puts one into an illusion within an illusion. We're already in illusion. Why are we in illusion? Does anyone know? What is the illusion we're in? Yeah, we're the controller. We think we're this body. It's like virtual reality. It's like the Matrix. Did anyone here seen the Matrix? No. Okay. He's seen it. So, in other words, we think we're like this. Like in virtual reality to the computers, they have this thing called avatars. You can represent yourself by an avatar on screen. And you think you're that avatar. Give you an example. One time, I don't want to get too far afield, but anyway, I can tell this story. One time I went into this virtual world on the computer. It was called Second Life, where you can choose your own body. And so I wanted to see what it was like, and I found that there was a Hare Krishna temple there. Yeah. And they were even selling dhotis and saris on it. with virtual dollars. Not bitcoins, but anyway, something else. It was called Linden dollars. So we went on there, and actually I found one of my disciples on it. Gopal, Some of you know Gopal. And he was like 7 feet tall. I said, "Is that you?" "Yes, Gurudev." And I have superpowers, and he could jump. Anyway, so that's an illusion. That's an illusion within an illusion. And sometimes people have this intoxication because they're attached to their mobile phones. They're just like, I was just reading something. Everyone's looking down nowadays. That's why cars are hitting people. And not only the people on the street are looking down, but the people driving the cars are looking down anyway. And everyone's in danger. So avoid intoxication, no illicit sex. The sex life is for marriage and married life. Unfortunately, we have leaders in the political sphere in America who are not exactly following that particular principle and are famous for not following that principle, and there's a lot of rebellion in America right now due to that. So this is cleanliness, obviously. I mean, diseases can be avoided, and gambling, truthfulness. Because gambling is actually, as Krishna says, one of the biggest cheating thing that there is in this world. And we see when Yudhisthira Maharaj gambled, he even gambled his wife, his brothers, his kingdom, everything. So we definitely want to avoid gambling, because you just go into a fever, you lose everything. And in Las Vegas, of course, they have notary publics where you can sign over your car after you've lost everything. Really, I mean, I've gone through the Las Vegas airport, and the whole airport, anyone here been through the Las Vegas airport, changed planes? Isn't it, what's the airport full of? Slot machines. They're called one-armed bandits. They're even called bandits. And can you imagine if I say someone's a bandit, and you say, okay, I want to meet him. But these people want to meet the bandits, so the whole airport is full, thousands and thousands of slot machines. So we want to promise not to do those things. And that's pretty big. Actually, at the first initiation Prabhupada did, he told the devotees basically about the four regular principles at initiation, because he was just kick-starting the movement. So Prabhupada says about following initiation vows, says it's not very difficult to follow the four regular principles. These things should be stopped if you want to be serious. Otherwise, they make a farce and do whatever you like. I cannot give you protection. That is not possible. Now, one of the challenges in following the four regulated principles is the association one has. Like if you're associating with people who are not following the four regulated principles, then naturally you may be inclined after a while to do that. You really have to be careful. I mean, because even the meat eating, let's say meat eating, for example, we know it's sinful. But even one who transports the meat, who cooks the meat, who serves the meat, who kills the animal, any of these people who are connected with that, it's a very similar type of reaction. So I'll give you an example. The other day I was at my mother's 90th birthday, and it was at a restaurant, and they weren't serving vegetarian food. And so what happened is there was a buffet. You know what a buffet is? Everybody goes up to. So I was with my brother, myself, and my mother. That's the only people who are alive in my family right now. Anyway, that's what happens when you get older. People have a tendency to die. It's a bad habit, but so anyway, so what happened was that everybody walked up to the buffet, and my mother naturally picked things that were not so mentionable, because she's not a vegetarian yet. And I told my brother, I said, I cannot carry the plate back for her, because she's 90, obviously. So you do it. So I was very careful about that. So that's how careful I am. And then, so we have to be careful about associating. And another interesting thing is when I was first a devotee, first joined the Hare Krishna movement, we used to go to the college dormitories to distribute books. Dishanarayan Prabhu would like this story. So we go into the different rooms in the dormitories, sneak in, because we didn't want to get caught by the resident assistant, the person who monitored the halls. And the rooms were invariably filled with smoke. I don't know if it's like that today. Probably not. Probably they follow the four regulated principles in the universities now. So the rooms were filled with smoke, marijuana smoke, so we had to hold our breath. Because if you breathed in the air, you'd be taking intoxication. It was so bad. So practically had to go in with Aqualung, one of the, to visit them. So one has to be careful of their association. That's a challenge when following the initiation vows. People have habits from before. I know sometimes tea is really difficult. I mean, I was dealing with one gentleman from Gujarat, and he's chanting 16 rounds for so many years, and really dedicated, reading all Prabhupada's books, but can't give up tea. Wow. And it reminds me of the story when Prabhupada said to his wife, because his wife had taken his Bhagavatams and sold them for tea biscuits. So Prabhupada said to his wife, you have to choose between tea or me. And she said, I'd rather have tea than you. So I mean, what happened is the British deliberately addicted people in India to tea. First of all, they gave tea away for free. You may not know this, but it was free in the beginning. And everyone's thinking, wow, free, because anything is free, people like. And then after a while, you get addicted. It's like drug dealers on the street corner, you know, they'll give you their, whatever, heroin or cocaine or whatever for free. And you're thinking, wow, how merciful they are. So kind. And so the British were the original drug dealers. And so they got people addicted to tea. And, you know, tea is addictive. I mean, caffeine is addictive. I mean, I was never addicted to tea, but I could tell you that another story about my mother. She was addicted to coffee. Not anymore. She doesn't take it. But every morning, if she hadn't taken her coffee, there was shaking and anger. And I would just have to go. This was when I was a kid. I had to go to her and say, you should drink your coffee, Mom. Because, you know, I was scared. After she drank the coffee, it's just kind and gentle and everything like that. So that's a sign. The sign of the sign of addiction is you can't live without it. And it's not like breathing or drinking water or anything like that. That's a sign. When you have something like that you can't live without, that it's not one of the bare essentials of life, you're addicted. So, we get addicted to a lot of things, food addictions and sugar addictions and things like that. But particularly the initiation vows, we're not asking people to vow not to take sugar. That would be too hard. But at least no coffee, tea, cigarettes, stuff like that. So Prabhupada said, so if you must have to follow these rules and regulations. If you were serious, then take initiation. Otherwise, don't make farce. Don't make farce. That is my request. So the way one can develop the determination to follow these rules and regulations, and they may be difficult for some people they may not be, is to have some goal in mind, some determination, some sankalpa. You know, what is the purpose? What is the why of your life? You know, what are you trying to achieve? I mean, maybe you need to write that down. And if the why of your life is to be Krishna conscious, help my family become Krishna conscious, then naturally everything falls in line. But if you're just following the rules and regulations because they're do nots, or as Prabhupada said, donuts. You know, a donut? It's a thing with a hole in it. So if you're just following the rules and regulations because they're do nots, it's going to be very hard. Because every time someone says do not, you want to do, because it becomes more attractive. So the rules and regulations should be followed because you have this desire to be Krishna conscious, or to help others, or to help your family, or to do the right thing, at least be dharmic like Yudhisthira Maharaj. You know, there has to be some intention like that. Okay? So, okay. So we can do this exercise, take some questions here. Usually we do in small groups. Who can think of some challenges in following the four regulated principles? Challenges? Everyone's too shy about that. Anyway. Yes. What is it? Yeah. That's an interesting one. Well, then they should just take, what is that drink called again? No, there's one like caffeine drink. I'm just joking. Red Bull. No, don't do it. I'm just joking. In an emergency, something like that. Let's say an emergency situation. Let's say, say you're driving someone to the hospital or something like that. That's another thing. Under ordinary circumstances, that should be avoided. I remember sometimes we had to take long trips, and I was tired, so I would just eat peanuts or something. Just keep popping something in my mouth, and that kept me awake. And that, of course, is kind of fattening, but it's it's not against the regulated principles. So there's other ways to do that. Or I remember I was driving with someone you may know across country, and we drove in 3 days from New York to California without stopping. And so we just told each other jokes along the whole way. And that was kind of fun. Because we were following Prabhupada from coast to coast. Like Prabhupada was on the East Coast, like New York, and then we followed him to the West Coast, Los Angeles. So we just wanted to follow Prabhupada. And so we didn't want to take 5 or 6 or 7 days to drive across country. So anyway, so there's other ways to deal with it. If you think outside the box, there's other ways to stay awake other than drinking coffee. When you're addicted to coffee and caffeine drinks, then you'll need more and more of that, and then you won't be able to stay awake without it after a while. And sometimes it takes a while to kick a habit. I mean, there's withdrawal symptoms, just like you hear about someone who's taking heroin, and then they stop taking it, and then they go through heavy, dangerous withdrawal symptoms. The same thing with it's not as heavy or dangerous with caffeine, but I've heard of people really going through intense periods like sweating and all sorts of problems and anger problems. So it can get a little heavy. So maybe you want to send someone to an Ayurvedic clinic in South India to detox for a while, or at least leave your home while they're detoxing. So, any other challenges that we have with coffee, tea, cigarettes? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So what actually falls in gambling is sometimes difficult to judge what is gamble, what is not.
You're talking about the stock market?
Yeah.
So it depends. If one is investing, that's not gambling. Like if you're investing, you have some knowledge that, IBM is going to split 2 for 1 next week. Some inside information, which is illegal. Anyways, but if you have some, what's that? Okay. So what constitutes, the question is what constitutes gambling? And, I sort of guess that it was like investments and things like that, speculative investments. It's a fine line. Whether, people talk about Bitcoin, for example. And I generally advise people not to do it because it's going to go up, it's going to go down, and I've seen people lose a lot of money. I remember years ago, devotees were thinking that investing in the Forex market, they had this whole scheme, how to make money. Forex means foreign exchange. And in Europe, there were a lot of devotees, nobody here. And there was literally about 400,000 euros lost by the devotees. That could have been used in Krishna's service, or and they mortgaged their houses. I would say before one makes an investment in anything, there should be some calculation of the risk based on intelligence. I mean, I've seen people invest even in building projects that were speculative, that I wouldn't say this gambling, but it's not intelligent. In Serbia, for example, they invested in this whole community outside of it wasn't Serbia, it was Bosnia. And they had asked the devotees to mortgage their apartments. And so many devotees lost hundreds of thousands of euros in that way, too. So I think everything should be done with intelligence. I wouldn't say investment is ever gambling, but I would be careful about investments, because you don't get something for nothing. That's the way I look at it. You just don't get something for nothing. You got to put in hard work, and otherwise, let's say if you win the lottery or something like that, usually because the activity is adharmic, and I've seen this. The person's lives get destroyed afterwards. First of all, everybody becomes their friend. If you win the lottery, it's all over the newspaper, and everybody's saying, wow, Adi Davis won the lottery. And then he finds out his friend, and I go to him and say, I'm your guru, don't you love me, Our relationship becomes very close. So I think it sort of pollutes the mind, something very quickly like that. And when you work hard for something, you actually appreciate. I mean, just like we built up the temple here after all these years, and now we have to renovate and everything. But it's been a struggle, and actually I appreciate it's been a struggle because it's taught me the value of money, the value of hard work and everything like that. And that lesson is more valuable than money itself is. So we have to think how it affects the consciousness too. So I can't give like a definitive answer to your question. It's a question of consciousness, it's a question of intelligence when you're doing something. And the main thing is not to engage in speculative, like rolling the dice, so to speak. You know, heads I win, tails you lose. You got that? You didn't understand that. In other words, I win either case. So anyway, so any other questions about challenges? Yes.
The job which the job which we do as like we had in an animal community research purpose. So how should that be?
Then you may have to do that for your job. You're not going to eat it, are you? So, I mean, as far as possible, that should be minimized, but sometimes for research, I'm not advocating it, but sometimes if one has a job, one is in a certain situation, what can you do? This should be minimized insofar as possible. Like, generally, we shouldn't be using leather goods or leather shoes, stuff like that, because it's a product of violence. And in America, we have so many synthetic materials like that. So, but as far as eating, no eating meat, fish, or eggs, and minimizing the violence towards other living entities. I mean, there's always violence. For example, you start your car, and there's so many microbes in the air that get killed instantly incinerated. I mean, many people from the Jain community, they wear the masks on their face to avoid breathing in any living entity, but they still drive a car. They don't put a mask on the car. The car is breathing more than I am, right? Isn't it the intake, the air intake? And so many living entities get incinerated, like billions and trillions each second when you're driving a car. And you're walking on the grass. I mean, you can't avoid harming another living entity. The idea is to minimize it and to dedicate your whole life to Krishna. And then Krishna says, aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayasami masuchaha. Then I'll free you from that activity. So, yeah, sometimes it's a tough situation. Any other challenges that people have in the... Yes? Chocolate's all right. I mean... Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, like one time Prabhupada was asked, what about cocoa? And Prabhupada, my understanding is Prabhupada thought they were referring to cocaine or the cocoa leaf. And I just heard a memory from Prabhupada, that one of Prabhupada's disciples, and he was saying that they were in Switzerland or something, and they said, Prabhupada, we have this Swiss chocolate here. Would you like some? And Prabhupada took it. So... I guess in moderation, you would be all right. I mean, it's slightly stimulating, but also with sugar, and a lot of different types of food are stimulating. I know some people may not agree with me about that chocolate thing. But, there are stories both ways about Prabhupada eating. I wouldn't get too fanatical about chocolate. It's, it's good for the heart, dark chocolate. What?
Eat chocolate if you're getting prasadam.
Yeah, prasadam. You offer to Krishna. What? Oh, you can't offer chocolate. In India, they offer chocolate to the deities, and I think it's fine. You offer your chocolate bunny, chocolate, whatever, to the deities and enjoy. I mean, you can't get too crazy about these things. Chocolate and this and that, and otherwise it becomes too intense. I think just coffee, tea, cigarettes, marijuana, alcohol, I think that's enough. Anything can be misused, and anything can be medicinal. I mean, even Prabhupada, he would sometimes take a little snuff, just because if he had throat problems, as a medicine. not because of, addiction or anything like that. So anything, practically anything, can be medicine. I mean, if one has terminal cancer, then maybe in certain states it's allowed in the United States. They take a little marijuana extracts or something like that because it prevents the pain. The poor person is in so much pain, they're screaming. So the doctors prescribe morphine. So maybe someone wants to do something more herbal than that. So these things are not, let's say, overall prohibited, but it's a question of what the use that they're being put to. Even we talked last week about onions and garlic, that garlic is a general antibiotic, antiviral, and it's very useful for that particular purpose. So Krishna has created all these things for a purpose, but we don't want to misuse them. Like if you eat 20 pounds of chocolate, you will be intoxicated, that's for sure. And don't feed chocolate to your dog because it kills animals, actually, because animals can't digest chocolate. So, any other challenge? Yes. How do you all? All right, killing mosquitoes. There's an interesting story that Prabhupada was under. I'm not saying how you should apply this, but Prabhupada was under the mosquito net in India, and there was a mosquito flying around. His servant asked, "Should I kill him?" And Prabhupada said, "No, he hasn't attacked yet." So when he landed on Prabhupada said, "Kill him." He's attacked. I think you have to be practical. I mean, protect yourself. I mean, mosquitoes can carry, in other places, various diseases like malaria and other things. So as far as possible, keep them out of the house. As far as possible, keep cockroaches out of the house. There's different things you can try with cockroaches to try to get rid of them in different ways without killing them. If it comes down to it, if it's a question of your health, your well-being versus the little insects, then you have priority. Because you're using your whole life for Krishna. If you weren't using your whole life for Krishna's service in one way, directly or indirectly, then it would be sinful. If you were just like living a life of just like pure materialism, then killing animals, then there's some reaction to it. There's always some reaction to killing animals. Even Kshatriyas who killed animals when they were hunting, and this was allowed for Kshatriyas, they had to see hell. That's described in the Mahabharata. After this life, they had to see hell. So, therefore, one should minimize the violence towards other living entities. Any other questions about the regulated principles? Yes? Herbal tea is nice. Well, I'm not saying it's okay or not okay, but if you're addicted to it, I mean, if you need it just to stay awake. Yeah, if you can find, herbal tea is very nice. I mean, there's all sorts of like wake up tea that has no caffeine in it. And there's also, I mean, you can get celestial seasons or something like that, teas. So that's what I would suggest, yes.
Maharaj, regarding the tulasi leaves,
Yeah,
we pray the tulasi plant, right?
right.
The other day I was watching some chat from the other disciple,
Yeah,
and she says, we cannot eat tulasi or take in tea or boil it or because we are praying the tulsi mantra.
yes. We can eat the tulsi leaves or whatever after they're offered to Krishna. But not, like I know, like sometimes they sell tulsi soap, tulsi toothpaste, and they just kill the plant. Tulsi is a sacred plant, which has come from the spiritual world. So if tulsi is offered to Krishna, certainly you can eat the leaves. I mean, you can eat any part you want, but usually you make beads from the branches and things like that. But yes, we should avoid tulsi products that are sold commercially. That's not a regulated principle, it's just my humble suggestion. So we should move ahead because we're running out of time. So that's, if you are unable to fulfill that promise of your spiritual master, then what is the use of calling yourself a devotee and disciple, simply pretending? So you have to think like this. that I have promised my spiritual master this. Now I must obey him without any exception. Otherwise, I have no business calling myself a disciple. The word disciple means discipline. In Sanskrit, the root for shishya is shash, which means discipline, like shash dhatu. Dhatu means root, of course. And also there's another word similar, shastra and shastra. You got that? Shastra is what you read. Shastra is the stick. Shastra is the stick. So all these things are connected with discipline. So a disciple must be disciplined in that way. Basic discipline. It's not like the disciple is like a slave of the spiritual master and, bowing down, yes, master, yes, master. But the, discipline as far as these principles and dedicating one's life to Krishna. There's no blind following. That will be your austerity or tapasya for forcing you to make rapid advancement in Krishna conscious understanding. Without tapasya, that means austerity. There is no question of making advancement, but if you want to call yourself devotee and serve Krishna in that capacity, then you must avoid these four basic principle restrictions under all circumstances without any exception. Of course, once, twice, Krishna may excuse, but that is not very difficult. But more than that, it will become very difficult for Krishna to excuse you, and there is great risk that everything will be lost despite all your time and effort spent. So in other words, Krishna is kind that one slips, once or twice. Prabhupada compared it to the American game of baseball, 3 strikes and you're out. So Krishna's very kind. It's not, of course, being lost doesn't mean you lose whatever service you did. Krishna in the Gita says, in this endeavor, swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahatobayat. In this endeavor, there's no loss or diminution. So whatever advancement you make in this lifetime, you take up in the next lifetime. But that makes you in this lifetime from reaching perfection. And then you have to take another birth. And taking a birth is not very pleasant. What do you think, Ayush? No, he agrees. He remembers. He was in the womb you remember being in the womb of your mother? No. Anyway, so you're 9 months all scrunched up, and everything your mother eats, including chili peppers, it affects you, and you start, oh no, get me out of here. And then finally you get out after 9 months, and everyone starts paying attention to you and think you're the greatest thing that ever appeared on earth. And you forget about the miseries of the material energy. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. You think, oh, this is the life. Until you have a brother or sister that's born after you, then you're no longer the center of attention anymore. That was my frustration when I was young. For 3 years, I was God. Then I became a non-entity after 3 years. That's why I had to join the Hare Krishna movement. Anyways, so according to the Vedas, there is a certain regulation that if one falls down from the exalted position, he has to undergo certain ritualistic processes to purify himself. But there is no such condition because the purifying process is already there in the heart of a devotee due to his remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, should be continued without stoppage. In other words, if one has some problems, then just pull yourself up. You don't have to do prayaschitta. You don't have to sit in a bed of nails, sleep on a bed of nails. You don't have to just hold your breath for 3 years. Or anything like that. Just continue chanting. This is another quote from Prabhupada. It's a tug of war, so don't be afraid of Maya. So don't be afraid of Maya. That's interesting. Simply enhance chanting and you'll be a conqueror, that's all. Krishna says, Kontiya patijanahi name bhakta pranashati, the Gita 9th chapter, text 31. You just declare, my devotee will never be vanquished by Maya. Maya cannot do anything. Simply you have to become strong And what's that strength? Chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Loudly. Yes. Okay. And that's the end of that episode. Any questions about that before we go on to the next episode? One of the things I wanted to speak about, it's not mentioned here in the slides, is something called the Ritvik philosophy. Some of you may have heard that before. So, after Prabhupada left the planet, when Prabhupada was getting ready to leave the planet, let's go back a little bit, he appointed certain devotees while he was on the planet to accept disciples on his behalf. That's called Ritvik. The word Ritvik means initiating priest. In other words, someone who sits at the fire sacrifice, throws the grains, and does the little spoon thing with the ghee. That's a Ritvik. So Prabhupada appointed certain people because Prabhupada was not able to answer all the letters, and he said, you do it, you chant on the beads for this particular person. But then Prabhupada said that after he goes, then his disciples who were qualified could become gurus on their own, if they were qualified. And Prabhupada indicated, and this is quite interesting, he wanted all of his devotees, that means men and women, to eventually become gurus, who are qualified. I mean, people who were following strictly, knew the philosophy, good examples, like all the qualities we mentioned in the previous class about being a guru. And so what happened is that many people couldn't, and you can understand practically, couldn't face the fact that Prabhupada had left the planet. It was quite traumatic. When Prabhupada left the planet, 1977, I mean, practically everybody was crying for days and days. I mean, we didn't know what to do. And so the whole idea of having other gurus in the Hare Krishna movement was just like, incredible, because we wouldn't accept it. It was very hard for anybody to accept, including myself, because Prabhupada was everything. When Prabhupada wrote a letter to a temple, everybody in the whole temple would sit down and read the letter. Wow, what does Prabhupada say? What should we do? Okay, let's do it. Like on Sankirtan. And Disha would have loved it. So they said, close the temple all day long. Send everybody out. Haribol! So anyway, so we don't have that now. Sorry, Disha. So anyway, it was a certain mood in ISKCON. So then all of a sudden, Prabhupada leaves, and what's going to happen? And so some people stuck with the idea that, Prabhupada should continue initiating after he leaves. And the problem with that, and that's one of the questions on the test, just so you know, there's several problems with that. One is that is complete change or deviation from the teachings of our whole sampradaya. That's a big problem. And Prabhupada, as a representative of the sampradaya, doesn't, a representative doesn't have the right to change the basic teachings. It's just not, because Prabhupada's authority is based on the Shastra, Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, these three different things. The Guru, the Shastra, and the Sadhus, the other saintly persons. So there's certain leeway you have in presenting Krishna consciousness. Like Prabhupada couldn't make a different mantra. Instead of chanting Hare Krishna, we'll chant I can't think of anything right now. We'll make up some mantra. And, he didn't have the right even to turn the mantra around. Instead of chanting Hare Krishna, we'll chant Krishna Hare. Krishna Hare, Krishna Hare, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. So that you can't do things like that. The spiritual master is in disciplic succession. He has to pass the message and the method untouched. So, but it's natural that people wanted to maintain that connection with Prabhupada. I'm not criticizing that. It's wrong, but people have emotions. You can't really drive emotions out of people, although I tried. So, so the Ritvik philosophy, Mother Krishna Priya will tell you that, attest to that fact. So the people believe in or there's still a lot of people who believe in the Riffic philosophy, is that Prabhupada continued to initiate. Another problem with that philosophy is that when you're presented with a prospective disciple, you have the right to say no. Just like if you're getting married, you have the right to say no, right? Like if someone comes up and proposes to you and says, "Will you be my wife?" And you say no. He said, "You don't have a right." And I mentioned this the other day, actually a little bit about that. So there's several problems with this Ritvic philosophy, and it's something that's not bona fide, although you may run into people who believe in it. Prabhupada, and another problem with the Ritvic philosophy is that why accept initiation from Prabhupada? That way you could accept initiation from Lord Brahma, from Narada Muni, from Krishna himself, Lord Vishnu, any incarnation you want, Matsya, Kurma, Nrsinga, pick your incarnation, Anyway, so that's some of the things you'll be tested on. Next thing is acting in relationship with the Guru. And we get these different instructions here. So this we already talked about. Srila Prabhupada is the preeminent Shiksha Guru, allegiance to ISKCON and Parampara, respect for multiple authorities. These are things we went over before. Commitment to vows. This is just a summary, so we're not going to go over that. Okay. So, Guru Puja. So we have this verse, Sakshadari Trena Samasa Shastra Dastata Bhavyate Vashadbi, which basically means the spiritual master is honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant of the Lord. That's from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Guru Vastika, which we chant every morning. And Arananam, I even quoted this last week. Sarvesham Vishnu Arananam Param Tasmat Padram Devi Tvaryanam Samarchanam. That's Lord Shiva's verse. And he says, of all types of worship of Lord Vishnu is topmost. However, above worship of Lord Vishnu is the rendering of service to Vaishnavas who are related to Lord Vishnu. So, is Prabhupada's statement from an arrival. This Guru Puj, which we are doing, it is not self-aggrandizement. It's not like that Prabhupada is just enjoying this. It is real teaching. You sing daily, what is that? Guru Mukha Padma Bhakya Chitete Kodiyakya Bas. This is translation. I'll tell you frankly, whatever little success there is in the Krishna conscious movement, I simply believe what was spoken by my Guru Maharaj. You also continue that, then every success will come. Srila Prabhupada insisted upon a Guru Puja for himself every day. And that's actually the first in the history of Vaishnavism, as far as I know, he's the first Acharya to do that. Because with Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, there was a Guru Puja, not even once a year in the beginning. Thank you. It's not wine or anything, it's just... Okay. With Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the first few years he was a guru, he didn't take Guru Puja. He took it after the preaching really started to get rolling. And that was once a year. So Prabhupada did this not because he wanted to be worshipped or anything like that, but he wanted to establish his position as the founder of Acharya in ISKCON, which we talked about last week. How important it is in people's minds. It's to cement his position in people's minds. It's very important, as we mentioned, to establish a relationship with Prabhupada. Now, one thing I did this week is I took all the Prabhupada memory videos and digitized them into MP3s. And I can give that to Aditya Narayan Prabhu. So I distribute that, or I can put it on my on the cloud for everybody to download, whatever is easier. That might be easier. And so now they're all audio files, all the Prabhupada memory series. And you find that when you listen to them, you actually develop a relationship with Prabhupada. Because we talk about that over and over again, developing a relationship with Prabhupada. Unless you understand what Prabhupada did, his interactions with people, and from other people, it's very hard to do that. I mean, for me, it's easy because I was there with Prabhupada. But if you really want to be there, then you hear from about their interaction with Prabhupada. So I've done that over this last week. It's about 60 some odd memory DVDs. Each one is about an hour or two. So you got a lot of hours to listen to, and you're welcome. Anyway, I guess putting it on the cloud would be the best way. Yeah, so you're welcome. So you can develop a relationship with Prabhupada and really appreciate him. There's one story I'll tell in class. Not now, but I'll tell in class when we got everybody here about Prabhupada's mercy that I heard this week from in this series from Indradunya Maharaj. It's about someone who I never thought would become a devotee, and by coming in contact with Prabhupada, he became a devotee and went back to Godhead. Anyways, that's another story. We'll wait for others. So, formal worship of ISKCON gurus. We perform Arti and Prabhupada every day for Prabhupada. And while performing Arti for the deities, the devotee takes a picture of his guru and puts it, on the table close to whatever he's doing the Arti. And then when he's finished, takes it off the altar. That doesn't mean we have anything against the personality, but we want to have unified society. What happened in Prabhupada's Spiritual Masters Society, the Gaudiya Mouth, they actually started fighting based upon their gurus. This was in India, not in America. So one disciple would chant the pranam mantra for his guru during the Arti, and another one wanted to chant his guru's pranam mantra, and they actually had fisticuffs right in front of the altar. So, that's extreme, but we don't want party spirit. We all want to be one happy family. Not my guru. We're all working under Prabhupada, and our relationship with our particular guru is something that's our relationship. Like your relationship with your wife, your children. And of course, you shouldn't make it public unless you go on Facebook. But now it's completely public. It's really weird. It's really weird. When I was young, nobody talked about the relationship with their wife or their children, broadcast on TV or anything like that. But now you can go on anyone's Facebook page and say, here's me with my wife swimming, And so what do you put in a picture? Your wife in a bathing suit on the internet. This is ridiculous. Isn't it? People do stupid things like that. Everything's become so public. But really, with close relationships, it should be something that's in the heart. Like Prabhupada was asked one time, do you ever feel great separation from your spiritual master? And Prabhupada replied, that question you don't need to ask. In other words, it's none of your business. It's a personal relationship. So our relationship with our guru, is a personal relationship, and that keeps the society together too. And Prabhupada is in the center of our society, and that will satisfy all the gurus and satisfy Prabhupada. Because I can tell you what satisfies me the most is when people are serving Prabhupada. I don't care whether people are serving me or not. I want them to serve Prabhupada and Prabhupada's mission. So in order to do that, you keep the picture of the guru should be smaller, like 0.5 millimeter high. No, I'm just joking. The corner of your glasses, and just appropriately smaller, and is removed after the Arti. This is just different injunctions. Guru Puja, their gurus outside the temple room. The temple room provided facility. Like if a devotee wants to have a little Guru Puja for his guru in his room daily, that's a personal thing. That's fine. But it shouldn't intrude on others, and others shouldn't feel, hey, you want to come to my Guru Puja? It's better than your Guru's Guru Puja. So, it's, and we don't address anyone publicly in ISKCON, except for Prabhupada, as His Divine Grace. So, and Pada and Deva should be out. Because I'll tell you what happened. There's a whole history behind this. When Prabhupada left, when people started to accept disciples, including me, everyone had to get a Pada or a Deva name. The second part of the name, the suffix. So there was Krishna Pada, Sankirtan Pada, Temple Pada, whatever Pada. Vishnu Pada, Pada Pada. So it was just like competition of who had the best pada name. So therefore, basically everyone, the disciples can call the guru anything as long as it's respectful. So, but that's in private. But publicly, the guru should be called so-and-so Maharaj, so-and-so Prabhu, whatever, publicly. Or my Guru Maharaj. These are generic terms. Generic terms like Gurudev, Guru Maharaj, like that. These are all generic terms. So this is a proper thing, but that's what's mentioned here. But not that we have a pod competition. I mean, it got ridiculous. I forgot, what was my pod name? Oh, Sripad. That's right. ISKCON centers celebrate Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja ceremony as the preeminent Vyasa Puja ceremonies. And everyone is requested, not required, to write an offering for Srila Prabhupada or speak an offering for Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja or Tirobhava. Tirobhava means disappearance day. And we want to focus on Srila Prabhupada. The Siksha or Diksha Gurus can accept a public Guru Pujan person once a year on ISKCON property on his or her Vyasa Puja day. So it's not that you can have 10 Vyasa Pujas on ISKCON property every year. It's just one Vyasa Puja on ISKCON property. I mean, you can, someone's house later on, you can have some people make offerings and tell them how much they love you or something. But otherwise, and that celebration can be held in the temple room. And it should be in a more modest way than Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja or Tirobhava ceremony. And it used to be much more opulent. I mean, we're dressing like excesses that occurred to keep Prabhupada in the center. In general, devotees shall observe Vyasa Puja celebrations in their own locales, and ISKCON Vyasa Puja books may be published only for Srila Prabhupada. We can have a book, like an online book of appreciations for a particular guru, but not like thousands or tens of thousands of copies, and then you go on Sankirtan, you're distributing the Vyasa Puja books of your spiritual master. Expressing appreciation is nice, but we don't want to obscure Srila Prabhupada's position. Prabhupada said, herein lies the secret of Vyasa Puja. When we meditate on the transcendental pastimes of the Absolute Godhead, we are proud to feel that we are his eternal servitors and become jubilant and dance with joy. All glories to my spiritual master, for it is he who out of his cause unceasing flow of mercy has stirred up within us such a movement of eternal existence. Let us bow down to his lotus feet. And so, Ye me bhakta jana parta, that's Krishna speaking. Na me bhaktas cha te janaha, bhaktanam cha ye bhaktas, tat me bhakta tamamataha. One who says, those who are my direct devotees are actually not my devotees. Sometimes translated, those who say they're my devotees are not my devotees, but those who are devotees of my servant are factually my devotees. So any questions about that? What time are you taking a break? 2:15. Okay, so we got time. Any questions before we go ahead to the next? Questions? Yeah, you can ask a question.
So, I was talking about that, one should not be talking about the relationship one has with Guru.
Yeah.
But sometimes we, amongst our God brothers, God sisters, talk about our experiences.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah, and with others too. There's no problem with, let's say, glorifying a Vaishnava publicly or however. I mean, we don't want to just go overboard and say you can't say any nice things about people who are gurus publicly. But it's the mood. It's the mood. It's not. It shouldn't be like a competitive thing. My guru is better than your guru, and if you really, we've seen this happen. If you really want to become Krishna conscious, go back to Godhead. You have to accept initiation from so and so. He's a real devotee. Everybody else is just like second class. So, any other questions before we go on to Guru Seva? Yes. Ujjwala? Yeah, we have to use the mic.
Maharaj, what were you saying how do we address any sannyasis and how do we address the section in public? I understand you said that you could say good day and you are
Yeah.
not. But in public, yes, how to address?
Well, it depends on the public situation. Let's say if you're just amongst, let's say a small group, you say Guru Maharaj. You can address them as Guru Maharaj. But if you're doing let's say an advertisement for a big program, you shouldn't say, Guru Dev, Tri Dandi, Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahansa, Krishna Pad. Yeah, whatever. You have to be. It requires some discrimination. But I think there's no problem. Let's say if I was giving a class and one of my, like even here, one of my disciples would say, "Oh, Guru Maharaj, this," that's all right. As long as it's not a pod name. So, oh, Shripad. Then I think it's a question of discrimination. Just so it's not a question of like canvassing, it's not a question of putting anyone else down, it's not a question of trying to establish your guru as, better or more prominent than Srila Prabhupada. And the whole idea behind this is to keep Prabhupada's position as the most prominent in public areas and also in our own minds. But also you can't legislate in the individual disciples' minds and hearts. These things can't be legislated. If you pass a rule that Prabhupada should be your most prominent guru, you can't enforce that sort of rule because that's an individual thing. It's an affair of the heart. That's, it's like that. That you can't. But as far as the movement itself, Prabhupada is the most prominent. And that's what ties us in together. Without Prabhupada, we break apart. Without Prabhupada at the center, there is no movement. The mission of Srila Prabhupada is finished. We just break up into whole different... And some of Prabhupada's disciples decided to do that. They left ISKCON and formed their own societies for a variety of purposes. It's not a criticism. And they have their own mission, but they're not part of this worldwide mission of Prabhupada that will actually change the world. And whether their mission, as we've seen before, will continue when they're no longer on the planet, that's another thing. I mean, I know for sure, because I'm working within Prabhupada's society, that whatever work I do will continue. Like we have this temple here, Nugaloka. One day, I'll go with Yamaraj somewhere. Yamaraj? Anyway, whatever. I mean, Yamadutas will come to get me. And then I know the temple will continue because we got all of you. We got Prabhupada Society. We got the GBC. We got my godbrothers will probably be passing away too. But we got devotees, next generation. If the temple will continue. Radha Golokananda will continue to be worshipped. But if I just wasn't part of ISKCON, Radha Golokananda, I wouldn't know what would happen. I mean, there are so many deities in India that are just not being worshipped at all. I mean, for example, the deity in our Dallas temple, Radha Kalachandji, beautiful deity. Anyone here been to the Dallas temple? You've been to the Dallas temple. That deity was in a museum as a doorstop before. For maybe hundreds of years, it wasn't being worshipped. They just put him in some museum. And then Prabhupada started to worship him again. So that's the problem with doing things individually. When you have a society, not only ISKCON, let's take the Sri Sampradaya. They're continuing to worship the different deities like Bharata Raja and different deities in Sri Rangam. They're continuing to worship generation because they have a whole society, an organization. That's what. And when you do things as part of a society, although it's a sacrifice of individuality, it also ensures the longevity of your service, which is really important. So my service will continue. Whatever service I've rendered, I know it will continue one way or the other. Of course, I won't be able to control things, but, that's my austerity. So, any other questions before we go ahead? Because we want to finish this next slideshow at 2:15 so we can take a break. So Guru Seva. Seva means service. Just like when you purchase something, you must pay for it, therefore it's called Sevaya. You cannot pay by returning the value which is taught by the spiritual master. That is not possible. Therefore, it is called sevaya. Dedicate your life to his service. You cannot pay what you've got to pay to a spiritual master. That's from Srila Prabhupada's class. And therefore, as far as I'm concerned, I have an eternal debt to Prabhupada, and I will keep paying it eternally, and that's blissful. I want to do that. It's not like having a debt to the bank. 30 years, you paid the mortgage off, thank God. I paid my mortgage off to my guru, so now I can do any damn thing. So you don't want to think like that. The devotees of Lord Chaitanya must preach Krishna consciousness in every town and village in the world. That will satisfy the Lord. This order goes down through the parampara system, and the spiritual master presents these orders to the disciples so that he can spread the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is the duty of every disciple to carry out the order of the bona fide spiritual master and spread Lord Chaitanya's message all over the world. Famous verse that Yarideka Tarika Krishna Upadesh, Amarigai Guru Hoi Tare Desh. Wherever you go, whoever you come in contact with, give them Krishna's association. And so the skits we're not going to do. It's interesting when you have the longer disciple course, we can do skits, and it's quite some very funny skits. We had Ritvik people on some of our skits and everything like that. It was really interesting. Then one skit, we had the temple president fighting the guru. The disciple belongs to me. No, mine, no, mine. And the poor disciple is being pulled apart. It's interesting. You write that you have desired to avail of my association again, but why do you forget that you are always in association with me when you are helping my missionary activities? I'm always thinking of you, and you are always thinking of me. That is real association. The spiritual master is present wherever a sincere disciple is trying to serve his instructions. This is possible by the mercy of Krishna. In your attempts to serve me and all your sincere devotional sentiments, I am with you as my Guru Maharaj is always with me. Remember this always. And that's the end of that one. So, there's Guru Seva. Does anybody have questions about Guru Seva, serving the spiritual master? You have some questions? Yeah? No questions? Yeah.
One point here that it's one point that I wanted to bring up, which was really important.
Page what?
On page 48, the principle of very rigidly carrying out the order of the spiritual master must be observed. The spiritual master gives different orders to different people.
Yeah.
For example, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami to preach, and he ordered Radhanath Das Goswami to strictly follow the rules and regulations in the announced order. So
Yeah, so that's the advantage of having a spiritual master, because the instructions are adjusted according to the psychophysical nature and time, place, and circumstance. One of the duties of the spiritual master is to ascertain the psychophysical nature of the disciple. That means what their varna is, basically. Everyone's a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or mixed. And you have to give them a service accordingly. You can say to someone, dedicate your whole life to building temples, or another person, dedicate your whole life to studying my books or translating books. So everybody has a specific service. So the order is different for each and every person, but the principle is the same. The principle is that the spiritual master is acting as a mouthpiece of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you also have a right to ask the spiritual master, let's say, what is the purpose of that particular instruction, or I would rather do this. You have a right to do that. I would rather chant or go on Sankirtan or something like that rather than do this some other thing. And the spiritual master is flexible. He's facilitating your spiritual life like that. So, any other questions about that? Haribal.
Can Siksha Guru deliver the disciples from?
Yes. Yes. Siksha Guru can deliver it like Prabhupada can deliver all of us. And even if you're not initiated by Prabhupada, your primary guru may be Prabhupada. Primary guru is the guru who saves you. And that's not necessarily the Diksha Guru. And you see in the case of our Sampradaya, many of the links, and I touched upon this last week, many of the links are Siksha links, like between Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Baladev Vijayabhushan, between Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his spiritual master, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. This is the Siksha link. So, no, it doesn't have to be Diksha to deliver. But Diksha is required because it's part of the process of Krishna consciousness. But one can be saved. Yeah, one can take Siksha from any member of our disciplic succession. Of course, understanding that Prabhupada is presenting by the mercy of Prabhupada, we're getting that mercy. I mean, and after we've read Prabhupada's books substantially, then Prabhupada did recommend that we can read some of the books of the previous acharyas, particularly Prabhupada, like the books of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the Jaiva Dharma, and the Chaitanya Shikshamrita. So, or we can take Shiksha from people who are here today. You know, we can have many Shiksha gurus. But it shouldn't come to the point of like shopping around for someone who agrees with me. That's the point. That, you know, my Siksha guru says, oh, you should do this. You should read a half hour a day or whatever. And then says, well, I don't like that so much. Let me find out from someone else. Do I have to read? And another Siksha guru says, no, just do deity worship all day long. I like you better. Okay. And then but the next time you accept the other Siksha guru is more prominent because he says something you like more than that one. So you really have to be careful about not violating Vaishnava etiquette when dealing with Siksha. And also, the Diksha Guru gives permission to accept instruction from Siksha Guru. So that there's etiquette there. So, Rishikesh, you have a question?
Just wanted to understand, is it okay to get Siksha from a genuine devotee outside ISKCON?
And not connected to Prabhupada?
Yeah, I mean from other sampradayas.
Other sampradayas? Yeah, I mean, if what they're saying, well, we have to connect it with Prabhupada. We connect it with Prabhupada's teachings. And sometimes you're going to find some conflicts there. So Prabhupada said it could cause confusion because the presentation of a particular sampradaya may be different from the external viewpoint from another presentation of another sampradaya, and it may cause confusion in the minds of a neophyte disciple. Neophyte means basically, in this context, someone who's not seen Krishna yet. Now, if someone is advanced, they can reconcile all these things very easily. The teaching in the Marka Sampradaya, the teachings Sri Sampradaya, you can reconcile all especially the Siddhanta. If you're just seeing things on the surface, then you may have a tendency to find fault. And we saw that happen with some devotees who became expert in Sanskrit. They even began to criticize Prabhupada. Even one of Prabhupada's assistants, anyway, his name was Nitai, Prabhupada said he had become a snake because he had become too intelligent. You know, he was criticizing the Sampradaya, basically. And he heard offenses against Prabhupada that were spoken by something called the anti-party. I'm not going to get into the details what that is. But people who were opposed to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And to this day, he's going on the internet and offending Prabhupada. So one has to be very careful of this. I mean, we have our path, and it's not that we're not to cry other people or criticize other people. I regularly associate with members of different sampradayas. I have spent a lot of time in Srirangam before, and we have the Srirangam priests come and help with our temple in Tirupati. They even did the whole installation there. So we have a lot of interaction with different sampradayas, but one has to be careful philosophically, unless one is very advanced, to reconcile these differences, because there are external differences. Like Prabhupada said, transcendental disagreement that we won't understand but will cause us confusion. It's transcendental disagreement. Is that necessary? So I think we have to. Is it time to take a break or? Okay, so let's take a break for how many minutes? 15-minute break. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.